Marissa, how are people there preparing, and how concerned do they seem to be? Are they taking these evacuation orders seriously?
Hey, Vicky. So before I explain how things are going here in terms of the people, how they're feeling, I want to just set the scene here. Tampa is not in the direct path when you look at the cone, and I know Bill is about to talk about that in just a second. The big concern here is the storm surge. We're expecting, they're talking about anywhere between 4 to 7 feet here in the Tampa Bay area. Now, Tampa is a place that has largely dodged hurricanes in the past few years. And so that is something that we're seeing in terms of the mentality, the attitude when we're talking to people around here in Tampa. I've been here for about 24 hours now, and what I noticed is the people who were the most concerned, these were the people that were flocking to the stores yesterday, people that were in line for sandbags. It seems like those people have already largely left. We're now left with the people who are prepared to hunker down, who are a lot more relaxed about this. On the other side of the camera, I see people biking. They've been going to get ice cream. I mean, not that there's any places that are open to do so, but I've been watching people walking around. One of them had a beer in their hand. And so I think you have the people who are left are not concerned about this. They're aware that there's the concern about the storm surge. I asked about that, and it's largely people that are several miles away from where the storm surge is the biggest threat. Now, behind me, over my shoulder, is Tampa General Hospital, and I want to take you to video of how they're preparing, because this is the region's only level 1 trauma center. And what you're going to see is they put up Aqua fences. There are, of course, lots and lots of ways in which the city and the county are taking this very seriously to make sure that these important structures do not flood. You see some of those Aqua fences going up right there. And this is something that's really important, because what you cannot see is the fact that Tampa General Hospital is on an island. We're talking about surrounded by the bay water. And of course, we talk about how there is concern about flooding here. This is something Tampa's seen quite a bit, Vicky and Morgan.
Yeah, Marissa, you talk about the flooding, the storm surge. We just got another update just about an hour ago from Governor Ron DeSantis. What's he saying now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously officials are asking people to take this seriously, even if they're not concerned, to not put authorities in risk by putting themselves at risk where they have to be rescued later. Governor Ron DeSantis has now given 2 updates today, and it's only, in the afternoon. We know that there's several more to come. He detailed some of the ways that the state is preparing for what's to come. This includes electrical outages. I want to take you to what he had to say in just a moment. But another thing he had mentioned, we talk about losing service. He says they deployed 250 Starlink internet devices. And this is what he had to say about the potential of loss of power.
There are over 25,000 linemen already in Florida as of this morning, and by the end of the day, we anticipate that to be between 30,000 and 40,000 linemen that will be here prior to the arrival of the storm, and then we'll move in to restore power as soon as the storm passes.
I will just end with this. In addition to the storm surge, of course, we have the winds, which are not going to be as big of a problem here. There is the threat of tornadoes. This is something that officials are also warning people about. We will see the outer bands here, so that is something that this whole area, the Tampa Bay area, is also on high alert for. Vicky and Morgan.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.